Welcome to the Granted podcast series, You've Been Granted, with Brian McDonald, CEO of Granted. Today's guest is Greg Robinson, Head of Corporate Development at Edward Jones Ventures. We look forward to an interesting conversation. Now over to you, Brian.
Thank you and welcome to the You've Been Granted podcast. I'm so excited to be here with one of my good colleagues, Greg Robinson from Edward Jones and Edward Jones Ventures specifically. Greg and I have a little bit of a history together. We spent some time together at Charles Schwab, so I consider Greg a friend and not only a colleague that I get a chance to work with each and every day. But welcome, Greg. Great to see you.
Thanks, Brian. It's great to be here. We've come full circle from Schwab all the way to here, so it's great to be here with you today.
You know what? I was just saying this to my wife the other day. I don't understand how, Greg keeps looking younger every year, but instead I keep aging. But it's great to see you, and great to spend some time with you.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to talking today. We're going to go through a little bit about, Edward Jones and Edward Jones Ventures. I love talking about the workplace. Obviously, this is a You've Been Granted podcast focused on equity compensation and workplace overall, but really just want to get your unique take on a lot of different things. You're at the intersection of a lot of different things right now. And as I think about Edward Jones and Edward Jones Ventures, I mean, the company has been around for 103 years, I think. You started in the Midwest. I'm from Indiana, so I love the Midwest. And you've kind of made your way out to almost every city in America. And I like to say, as you and I talk, like you're 1 mile away from every major corporation in America, let alone every urban environment in America as well, which is unique. 20,000 plus advisors and growing every year. It's just an amazing story and a big part of the wealth management ecosystem opportunity that's out there. But really what you're doing, Greg, is super interesting. Not only are you helping Edward Jones continue to grow, but you're doing it through kind of a unique perch, an opportunity with Edward Jones Ventures to engage with startups around the country, around the world, quite frankly. But maybe give me a little bit more color about Edward Jones Ventures. But before you start that, maybe give us a little bit of your background as well.
Yep. Thanks, Brian. Again, it's great to be here with you today. As you mentioned, prior to joining Edward Jones, I spent almost a decade at Schwab. And then before that, I'm a recovering investment banker, mostly covering financial institutions. But I was hired here at Edward Jones to sort of build out our inorganic growth capability. So I have responsibility for three main groups. One is our corporate development or M&A team, our strategic partnerships team, and then really what we're here to talk about today, Edward Jones Ventures. I've always been sort of fascinated with innovation and really corporate innovation. And with the launch and creation of Edward Jones Ventures, we really wanted to try to do CVC differently. A lot of firms try to work with startups or invest in startups, large firms, and it doesn't always go according to plan. And we really wanted to try to turn that on its head and really try to figure out how could we do that, bring the best of what Edward Jones has to offer, but also embracing the outside world and folks like yourself who have an immense amount of experience to try to combine the two of those things to deliver, what has never been seen innovation in wealth management. So really excited about what we're building here.
It's great. And again, thank you for the investment in Granted. It's certainly a big deal to us and has really helped us kickstart our launch. We're getting really close to our product launch on November 17th. And we look forward to being able to work with Edward Jones as well as colleagues around the industry in terms of what we're building. But, let's drill down a little further, Greg, into the Edward Jones Venture side of what you do. I know you see dozens of pitches, probably more than you care to see. As you said, a lot of them focused on financial advisor technology. What patterns are you noticing? Maybe just patterns of the successful ones versus those that don't hit the mark.
Totally. And as a firm, as you mentioned before, with 20,000 financial advisors, over 15,000 branch locations across the US and Canada, we can be a really great strategic partner to those trying to build in wealth management. I think some of the trends we were starting to see with those that are successful, and I think we can draw parallels with you as well, is first and foremost is you really understand both the wealth management industry as well as the financial advisor. I think oftentimes it's easy for someone to look at the TAM of the wealth industry, the fact that it has built-in growth with the market and the fact the market's been on a tear, and sort of say, wow, I should go build in there. I'm going to go build the next best wealth management firm, or I'm going to build a tool for financial advisors. And oftentimes, many of those entrepreneurs maybe haven't spent a lot of time in the industry or with financial advisors. So understanding the role of a financial advisor and what it takes to deliver advice to a diverse set of families, irregardless of wealth and in different parts of the country, is number one. Number two for us, open to feedback. I think oftentimes, we come in, myself included, with an idea that I think will work, after spending a lot of time in this industry. And then I'll go talk to, a dozen financial advisors, and then I'll realize that my idea wasn't very good, or maybe conceptually it was fine, but it needed many, many tweaks in order to sort of fit into their workflow or how they work or with their clients. So that's the second thing. And then really the third thing is that, and it sort of jives with who Edward Jones is our purpose, right? Like we're trying to provide advice to more people and more families, and that we're understanding that that's what we're about, and what you're trying to do will also help you get into the mind of those first two things I mentioned, both understanding the financial advisor and being open to feedback, but also understanding the greater purpose of what we're trying to do and finding gaps in that advice, and how can you provide more families with advice, not just necessarily, I can make someone more efficient, but like really, what are you trying to accomplish is really, really meaningful, because I think when you do that, good things eventually happen.
Yeah, that's great. And one of the things that I recognized early on when beginning to work with you is that the client is the most important thing in the Edward Jones mindset. And the advisors who serve those clients are incredibly important to the business overall. And, with wealth firms in general, like you can have great products, you can have great investment performance, but if you don't have a great standard of care and how you treat your clients and how you help them achieve successful outcomes in a way that helps them feel more confident and secure with their financial future, that's really the role the advisor plays. And it's a big part of the culture at Edward Jones. So it's great to see and great to hear. As you think about that, though, and I love what you just said about individuals who are building technology for the advisor community, understanding the advisor has to be paramount. You can't really just guess at what you think might work. You really have to have insights. But there are a lot of patterns that you see along the way, and your advisors certainly give you feedback. How do you apply those lessons learned or those learnings that you get from your advisors to the way that you go to market in terms of investing in that next breed of technology?
This is a great question. Yeah. So a couple of things we start to look for when we've moved past, say we've aligned with the entrepreneur. Now we're trying to figure out, okay, what are the tools or services that are going to work and really do well? And we think it starts to take that client, as you just mentioned, is number one, right? And what am I doing to help that client be better off. I'm providing a greater, more holistic advice. I'm helping them solve an issue. I'm giving them time back in their day. I think that's always critical for a financial advisor or anyone in a branch that's trying to serve clients on with holistic financial planning. And how do you, that the client sees value in the experience that is happening to them and they understand how they are going to be better off by doing this. I think the second component to that is it's easy for the financial advisor to use, right? So if a financial advisor likely has 80 hours worth of things to do in a 40-hour day, right. Our advisors in particular tend to have larger practices. And so how do we ensure that the tool that is being developed is easy for them to use, right? So circle back to this whole point about getting feedback from the financial advisor, right? It's a little different, right? You're trying to get both the client to engage in something as well as the financial advisor in a seamless workflow. So you really have to start to remove friction from the process, and you really have to start to ensure that the branch and the client both see value in what you're doing. And when especially when you can go after really unaddressed areas, right? I mean, I think we'll get to this a little bit later, but often the equity compensation world and the workplace in general is one in which there is a lot of unaddressed advice need. And so when thinking about that space, how can we address that? How can we do that in a tech-forward way, leveraging AI so that we can serve more clients with our human advisors?
Yeah, I love that. And I'm glad you're warming up to the equity compensation questions that we'll get to later. But it's certainly the way we think about things at Granted. As you mentioned earlier, experience can really help in this industry. And being a 55-year-old entrepreneur, I've seen a few things along the way. It doesn't mean I know exactly what works, but it does mean that I understand how clients think and certainly how advisors interact with clients and what's important to them. And so it sounds like you're doing that really, really well with Edward Jones and Edward Jones Ventures. But I have to ask the question, like, financial advice is changing. It's changing as we continue to grow. This isn't necessarily an AI question, but it is a question about the future of financial advice and advisor practices. So if you look 5 years ahead, pick any number in the future. 5 years may be, quite frankly, even a little too far. But if you think ahead, how do you envision financial advisors' practices changing? What capabilities might be table stakes in the future versus differentiators today?
Yeah, I love this question. Obviously, we spend a great deal of time thinking about this, investing against this theme, and really, we have we sort of focused on what I will call like just broad advice. Right. So so I'm going to talk a little bit of where I think the industry is going, and then how I sort of see advisors adapting their practices to meet that sort of demand from clients. And I say the word advice a lot. I think we say financial advice, but I think clients and consumers in general are just grappling. Every aspect of their life has some sort of impact on their financial lives, right? Whether it be their health, whether it be their taxes, their estate planning, insurance, all of these things sort of in and around their life and their, where I should move, what job should I take next, right? There's just, you really looking for a trusted person. And I think the financial advisor can sit in that sense, but where I see the industry going is more and more that the financial advisor and the client wants one place to go and do that, right? Their lives are complicated, right? It makes sense. I have a bank, I have a tax person, I might have a lawyer that I saw 5 years ago to get a will done, and I have no idea where that is anymore. I have aging parents, I have young kids, and I just don't know where to go get quality advice anymore. And so I think the financial advisor is often best positioned to do that. And so they need to be able to be super wide on their ability to provide advice to clients. That's exceptionally hard when they're stressed already. Yeah. So I see the future wealth advisor being able to provide what we call family office for Main Street is what we invest a lot of. So that family office that sort of serves your 100 millionaire, can we take where you sort of just drop off everything with them and they take care of your taxes and your houses and all of this stuff? Now, can I take all of that and bring it down to something simple to serve the everyday American? And the only way I'm going to be able to do that is with technology. I know we'll get to AI a little bit later. And so as a branch practice, I have to evolve, meaning I have to be able to understand a lot deeply in my space, and then a little about a lot of other things, and then being able to grab something that I can come and serve, which is why we partner with firms like yourselves and others in the startup area to try to build these tools and services for that financial advisor so they can provide that holistic financial planning or the holistic advice that I think clients are looking for, and be able to help them in a lot more aspects of their life.
Yeah, I love that. And certainly trust is a big part of that. And I think an individual who's looking for financial advice, or like you said, holistic life advice, trust has to be at the center of that. And so that's really well said. So kind of stretching that a little further, there are a couple of things that are happening right now, more than a few, but one is this wealth transfer that has already started to take place and will continue to happen. But also alongside of that, you have more wealth being created in the workplace than almost anywhere else today. And things like equity compensation have been big drivers of that. So not only is equity compensation helpful to attract and retain talent, but it's also created some significant wealth, in Americans that they didn't have before. And a big part of helping them manage that is kind of what that next generation of advisor needs to do. So, how are you thinking about that, or what trends do you see where advisors are starting to engage with both the wealth transfer and then also the workplace?
What's interesting about this question, Brian, is I think you and I may have had this conversation a decade ago,
right?
Around, I think, the opportunity around equity compensation, but just the workplace in general, right? And the workplace continues to grow. I think when you think about DC plan assets, you're thinking 12, $13 trillion. The equity market, 4 trillion, so about a third of that. So there's just a significant amount of wealth that continues to grow in that space. Yet the ability to get high quality advice at scale out of any of that is near impossible, right? You may be somewhat supported by what your employer does, depending on what record keeper you have. Oftentimes the relationship between that and the financial advisor can just be different. There's not a lot of tools that have been developed, especially in equity compensation. I mean, we're competing against a yellow notepad, right? Or Excel.
A spreadsheet.
And oftentimes I think, owing back to even Edward Jones and what we think about is being, and the great wealth transfer, be to serve our managing partner talks about this all the time, 5 generations at once. Right. So that could mean the executive of a firm, but then their children and their grandchildren, and their grandchildren might have their first relationship be with a 401k provider, or hey, maybe I happen to be at a tech company or another company that gives out that really believes in democratization of ownership and gives out RSUs or options. And all of a sudden I have this is where all of my savings is, or almost nearly 100% of my wealth. but my ability to get advice on that is near impossible. And so trying to be able to close that gap, one of our biggest, again, as I talk about this master theme of family office for Main Street, but we love investing in spaces where unaddressed advice is just hidden in plain sight. And when you think about the workplace and you think about equity compensation and your DC assets or your 401k assets, there is still a large untapped opportunity to provide advice. And we couldn't be more excited about what we could potentially do in this space.
Yeah, I love that. I'm definitely singing my tune here. I mean, we feel like for years, this is the largest asset in many clients' financial lives. In many cases, as they start to succeed and advance in the organization, to your point around democratization, individuals continue to build wealth that way. It's not a one and done thing. If they're getting grants one year, they're going to get it the next year as well. It becomes super important in their financial lives. It also becomes a big stressor, right? Like you said earlier, stress because not because I don't have the wealth I need. That's certainly one level of stress. It evolves into the second need, which is I have money that I know is important to me. It's maybe far more significant than my 401k, my equity comp, and instruments are getting more and more complex, moving beyond just RSUs to PSUs and options and other complex structures, which makes it really hard for the individual. And we find at Granted that there are two people that can sometimes be paralyzed. The first is the individual who's receiving the equity award and again, stacking those on top of each other year after year and getting super concentrated and being a little bit nervous that they're going to make a mistake. And so inertia sets in. And then all of a sudden it's 80% of your net worth. And not only is it 80% of your net worth, but it's also where your salary is coming from, where your bonus is coming from. So you're super concentrated from a lifestyle standpoint, let alone a financial standpoint. But how are you seeing financial advisors? That's the second person that sometimes can be a little paralyzed if they're not familiar. And what I would say is, in the past, individuals have called equity compensation kind of a niche thing that they'll focus on to potentially win new clients. We actually feel like that should be flipped around. As you said earlier, more and more wealth is being created in the workplace. More equity is being given to individuals. And so it's no longer a niche. If you're not engaging in that part of an individual's financial life, then you're probably not being a strong fiduciary partner and provider of advice to those clients. So having said all of that, what do you think, and certainly Granted was built specifically with that in mind, but what do you think the best advisors are doing to adapt their practices, to use the technology like Granted in order to keep pace, in order to be able to provide that what did you call it so well, like
holistic advice?
Holistic advice, but being able to be that family office for Main Street.
Oh, family office for Main Street. Yeah. I mean, the best advisors are, I mean, you asked me where I thought the world was going, which is, again, I sort of tend to always think of it as just the word advice and being able to provide advice to families when they need it. Right. And in this case, with the workplace, if you are not adopting tools and figuring out how to help your client with the need that they have, you are introducing opportunity for somebody else to do it. Right. And so the best advisors, whether that's at Edward Jones, whether you're an RIA, an independent, a wire, it doesn't matter. The best ones are the ones that are saying, like, I want to be your first call, right? When there's something that's worrying you at night. And I think before, there just wasn't a tool that made that easy for someone to do. I think the other thing happens, Brian, is if you're a financial advisor and you're saying, man, we just talked about the complexity of these products, maybe each organization has their own rules, their own ways. There could even be cultural norms around your equity. If you're into the C-suite, all of these things, I may be more reticent to ask you a question about it because I don't want to get over my skis, or maybe I don't want to look like I don't know what I'm talking about. And so where we can invest again in tools, I'm a broken record here today, but like, how can you then, you can normalize that complexity, or I can lessen the complexity for both you, the client, and for me, the financial advisor, so that we can do that holistic financial planning together, right? Like to expect any one of us to be an expert on everything is silly. Like, why would you? And so again, how can I be really smart, show up to something that to a client in a way that I know probably nobody else is talking to them about, right? There's probably very few people or financial advisors that feel very feel strongly that they can deliver this to anybody. And now we can turn and flip the script and give a tool to our financial advisors to be able to help more families understand this really important piece of wealth and surprise and delight at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's super well said. And we talked about it earlier, but if you're really astute here, and this is something you've done really well, and you engaged and you're confident, you've probably built something like a spreadsheet, which of course isn't scalable, and it's not even terribly compliant, that you have a spreadsheet that you're using from one client to the next with different potentially instruments, different underlying stock, et cetera. It could create a lot of challenges. Plus, it's super manual. Getting back to your 80 hours in a 40-hour week, it just doesn't scale. But the further way that we think at Granted about advice and using AI as it relates to advice is not like to step in and take over, but to deliver insights to the individual advisor that are going to be really helpful about them, allowing them to kind of narrow the scope of what they talk about and what they engage with. And then to your point, using the AI assistant to be able to ask questions so you can kind of sharpen your message and what you're thinking about before you meet with the client. And then even with the client, being able to ask questions to better understand kind of, what really is the difference between like an ISO and a non-qual option, and how should that, how should I think about that in having the conversation with my client and with regard to her taxes? So, we definitely think that's a really important thing. But if you think about overall, like I mentioned earlier, one of the things that amazes me about Edward Jones is you're a mile away from, every tech company or every, middle of the country, old industrial public company in the country. And so you're seeing equity comp. And as you mentioned earlier, if you're not asking them about what they're doing, you're either underserving them or you're opening a door for somebody else to step in and ask that question and solve that problem, especially as you think about executives. But from an investment perspective, putting your other hats on that you mentioned earlier on the M&A front, you've done some things this year that I think are really interesting. I think you bought a firm that focuses on direct indexing and other things. So the other side of the story is, I have equity compensation, I have my 401k, but what do I do with the proceeds when it comes time to think about reinvestment? So how do you see that impacting advisors and how they think about giving the advice around, now that I have the proceeds, what do I do next?
Yeah, I mean, I think, each advisor and client, right? Like, obviously each situation is going to be unique, right? As we think about that. I think, here at Edward Jones, we tend to say we like to, generate strong risk adjusted returns to the ability that's within the client's risk tolerance and everything, and taking that all into account. I would say, obviously, like, again, our overarching goal is to do deep financial planning with our financial advisors, right? And taking into their holistic life and goals into account. And we just want to ensure what is most important to clients is what we're trying to help and deliver. I think ultimately we would take each client, we're going to have to, obviously from compliance and everything, we're going to take each client's individual situation into effect. But again, the goal to provide holistic advice to all of our clients is what we're after. And Edward Jones has been around for 103 years and is an absolutely incredible firm, and serving, I think, almost 9 million clients today. And so it's an incredible place to be.
Yeah, I love that. And a perfect time, I think, to be in the wealth management business and certainly be serving clients. And it's fascinating to me, the more technology that is created and the ability for individuals to have more access to information at their fingertips. All the surveys say that the next generation cares more about advice and human advice than ever before. So again, I think it's a great time to bring tech as well as knowledge and that sounding board. I've been on record of saying that I think we're still several years away from advice being just the domain of an AI. I don't think anyone wants to throw their personal data into an LLM right now and hope for the best. Maybe that changes over time, but I always think that the emotional need of having an advisor is going to be pretty important. So I have a couple of just other quick questions on this topic, and then we can move on to a couple other ones. But as someone who's building technology or advice tools, the integration challenge is certainly real, and financial advisors have a lot of different technology out there. So how do you evaluate, whether a product is going to actually be adopted by advisors and, really kind of get to that pain point or that friction that you described earlier? And then, what type of guidance, maybe to add part B onto that, what type of guidance do you give your technology partners on the types of integrations that are going to be necessary for them to have long-term success inside of Edward Jones?
Yeah. So great question. Several things there. So I think one of the things, you didn't ask this directly, but it is important to the story. So when we think about integration, especially as we're working with startups, and I didn't touch on this earlier, but we do, we incubate, we do a lot of seed investing, not just Series A and B. So oftentimes we're helping the startup find product market fit. And as part of that, we're also helping on the integration side, meaning how do I build not just for, maybe the 3 or 4 major custodians, but like, how do I build and serve an enterprise customer like Edward Jones or any one of our customers? Because oftentimes, unless you've spent a lot of time in the clearing and custody space, that's not something you're thinking about often as an entrepreneur. So we also try to help with that so that when you are building, you're building at mass scale for an enterprise to start. You're right. The amount of tools that have been brought for financial advisors is incredible. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. I often start with, at least when it comes to what we want, what we feel is investable and adoptable, going back to what we said earlier, meaning like, am I actually providing a value to the client and to the financial advisor, right? Is there a dual excitement there? Or oftentimes we'll see things that are like, oh, I'll just make your advisor more efficient. And I'm like, well, but what value are you adding to the client, right? And there are, so that's one. A second thing is we like to invest against a theme or a topic and then feel like we can expand the value of that advice or service or product over time, right? So we start maybe with a wedge around something, but I often am not looking for 4 or 5 tools within one theme, right? Tax is a great idea, right? We might invest in, there might be 5 or 6 or 7 different things you're trying to solve. I might invest in one company and then look to expand what they can deliver over time. That's how we help, because advisors don't need more tools for more tools' sake. They need more value that they can provide to their clients to answer the ever increasing complexity and being able to serve them across their advice needs. And so that's what we're often looking for. Obviously, you want it to connect into your core systems, your core books and records, and all of that. One of the unique things we try to do on the Edward Jones Venture side is start in an unintegrated way, meaning let's go test and figure out the value that's going to be provided to both the client and the advisor. What this lets us do is get to market much quicker than otherwise other folks would have. The firm has been incredible. Like, our firm has been incredible at that speed. Get the sort of thing in front of financial advisors and clients. As that goes, then we can tweak the product that then when we're ready to integrate, we have a very good sense of a working product. We're not trying to integrate. We don't spend 18, 24 months trying to think and make the perfect product. We get it out there, get it with clients and financial advisors, get it working, and then come around. And that's how we sort of avoid putting too many things on the shelf that the advisors wouldn't necessarily want to use. And then, the last piece is I've been incredibly humbled and a little bit surprised by how willing financial advisors and their clients are to adopting tools and technology, especially when the value is clear. So that's why it's really staying focused on what problem am I solving for my client? Right? Then you will see advisors adopt. If you're just trying to get something that a financial advisor might think is cool and a client's not sure if they're going to use, then it'll sit on the shelf.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And, having more clubs in the bag doesn't necessarily make you a better golfer, but, having the right clubs in the bag for each shot, certainly is the right approach. I say that like I'm a good golfer. I even know what I'm talking about, but
totally. I don't know if the right clubs matter for me either.
It made me think about, you need a certain club for a certain situation. And, you've been true to your word on that. If you look at the investments you made, you just announced an investment in a digital TPA called Aboon. I think a couple of weeks ago, that certainly fits a need. It gets back to the advisors being a key component of workplace opportunities. I saw that you made an investment in Vanilla, of course, on the estate planning side. Again, we talked about your investment in Us Granted. So, all of those things kind of fit together in some way, but they're not overlaps to one another. And what I've been really impressed with is the speed at which Edward Jones can move. You're really good about like shepherding these opportunities in, and like you said, the checkpoints are: does it resonate with the advisor? Does it solve a client need? Are they nodding their head yes when you're doing kind of product demos and having that pitch or that conversation with them? And do they feel like they're going to use it if it becomes part of the ecosystem? So I love that. The other thing I would say about Jones that I think is super impressive is your ability to pilot and get started quickly. Maybe it's not even using client data. Maybe you're just using the app to provide feedback in order to help get it ready for prime time and continuing to validate the overall opportunity. So to me, those are some things that I was really impressed with, or have remained impressed with, is just how quickly Edward Jones can move once you guys have locked in on a decision about one of your partners. And and my guess is that's probably true regardless of investment or not. But certainly one of the things that we've been privileged to be part of.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier, and the idea of Edward Jones is sort of born out of this fascination with corporate innovation. And really, how do you avoid innovation tourism, or, feeling like I'm going to, invest in a couple of startups, or I'm going to, spend some time in the Valley, or, and really think about how can you take a firm that's been around 103 years and ensure that it's around for another 100 years. And I think, the firm's embrace of new technologies is certainly needs to be there. We also believe that innovation isn't our own job. It's everyone's job at Edward Jones. And so, we get incredible commitments and working with our sourcing teams, our third-party risks, our legal and compliance teams, and of course, our business leaders and our branch teams. But when you can bring those things together under a common goal, you can move with incredible speed, and you can work with startups. And the other thing is we try to avoid a lot of common mistakes, right? When we are investing, we are not investing for just the benefit of Edward Jones, but the overall wealth management industry. And we truly believe we are trying to continue to democratize advice, make advice available to anyone, human advice, right? Which is really critical to anyone who wants it, right? And to each person's unique needs, and being able to move incredibly fast and with our startups has been, I think, a key differentiator for us. And we really encourage anyone who wants to build in wealth management that this is a great place to do it. And you'll get a ton of feedback and participation from all the layers and different people here at Edward Jones.
Well, that's certainly been the case for us. And, I would never guess that Edward Jones is a 103-year-old company. Certainly great pride in that, and the staying power and the investment and the respect and the trust that you've built, but the behavior inside and maybe, what you're doing with Edward Jones Ventures and bringing more of these opportunities together creates that network effect that is makes what you do every day super modern and tech forward. And one of the things I've also appreciated is your ability to connect one founder to another or one product team to another. That learning environment, that network opportunity is certainly something that I think you get by making not just one investment, but multiple investments over an arc of time.
Yeah, our goal is to be, a traditional, act and participate almost as a traditional VC, but inside a corporate. And we've really focused on building a network of venture capital firms, product partners, industry folks, startups, and really just trying to bring that together to really create something new and different. We really want to be that destination for innovation and wealth management. And when you really think about the distribution channel that has been created at Edward Jones, again, almost 21,000 financial advisors are getting close to there. 45,000 people in the field, 15,000 branch locations. I think we have a branch location in all but 5 congressional districts across the country, a client in every county in the country. You really can start to build something special and really leveraging the outside world to do that. And you really get it. It's a somewhat trite to say, but 1 + 1 = 3. And we're really excited. We're just getting started. We're not even that old with Edward Jones Ventures, and think the future is really bright.
That's awesome. The reach is enormous, and you have distribution at scale, which is incredibly hard to build, especially in the area of advice. All right, so I have just a few more questions for you as I close this out. The first one is, a little bit of leaning in or closing with what we were talking about with regard to equity compensation. And then I got a couple of personal questions to send you on your way with. But the first one is, when you think about equity compensation and financial advisors who want to expand in that area, if they want to add that to their practice, if they want to engage their existing clients or prospect on that journey, what advice would you give them on how to do that in 2025?
Yeah. So first is really just be curious. I think one of the things that may happen is you may not realize they have it. It may not have come up. So ask, right? I mean, you would be shocked how many financial advisors I've spoken to throughout my career who are just unwilling or not afraid to just ask about it. Find out, be curious. Second, start to find out what is the goal. What do you want to do with that, right? Like, as you mentioned earlier, and I think has been the case for probably both of us in our careers, oftentimes that equity compensation is an enormous percentage of your wealth. What should I do? Right? Just sort of maybe just trying to find out what is their goal. And then I think 3, hopefully we can, find tools that help you engage that client even further. Right? Don't let it be a missed opportunity for you. That's really what I would, because I think a $4 trillion market, it is likely you have clients in your book that have it, and don't wait to engage them.
Yeah, super large TAM, and certainly the need is enormous, especially for 15 million plus employees of firms who grant equity across the country. It's an amazing opportunity. So with that, a couple of personal questions. So I know you spend a lot of time on the road, and so that means when you're at home, you spend a lot of time with your family, with your kids. What are a few things you're excited about? We're almost in November. What are a few things you're excited about heading into the holidays?
Yeah. Yes. Too much time on the road. Right. So when I'm not on the road, the holidays is sort of the best time. My kids are 10, 8, and 6. And so obviously we have Halloween right around the corner. We just did our first trunk or treat. I was given that task from my wife to decorate the trunk. I think I did okay. I'm not sure, but then obviously we've got trick or treat.
What is a trunk? Like a tree trunk or?
No, like a trunk. Like, so you drive your cars into the school and then everyone lines up. So you got like 100 vehicles and you decorate the trunk and you put candy.
Oh,
yeah. And the kids go, and I don't know that. Yeah, it was quite the haul. And then, I think the other opportunity is I'm not near either side of my family. So we're out here in the headquarters of Edward Jones in St. Louis. And so the holidays is always a great time for family to actually come out and visit. So, obviously family around Thanksgiving and Christmas. And I'm just I don't know if you know this, just a big Christmas nut. I just love that holiday. I love giving gifts, not receiving them. I'm the worst person to give a gift to. I don't know how to react appropriately. So says my wife, but I do like giving them and spoiling my children and my wife. And so it's an incredible time of year, and very much looking forward to it. And a little bit of non-travel. Hopefully that happens.
I think non-travel should be number one, and the rest goes from there. I'll have to connect you with my middle kid. She's obsessed with Christmas and always has been. She's 25 now, but since she was young, she's always been obsessed with Christmas. So it makes it fun for the rest of us.
It does. Yeah.
So the last time I was there, you were up before our meetings in St. Louis working out. Is that kind of what you're into lately, or
yeah? It's
what are your passions? these days.
It maybe came a little bit too late in life for me, but I've found working out has been an amazing stress reliever, and it's getting. They say it, right? You naturally working out should be healthy for you, but to be able to see the results and everything that come from that has been really incredible. And so, yeah, I wake up at 4:30, 3 or 4 times a week, and go work out with a trainer, and it's been incredible all the way around. And then we joked about golf earlier. I do love to golf. I got a golf trip coming up, and so. I'm not very good at it, but I do enjoy doing it. So those are my 2 passion things I enjoy doing outside of obviously Edward Jones Ventures, which is like my baby. I could probably talk about that for years and just bore anybody to death about it. So.
I doubt it. What you built is incredible, and it's fun to watch, and it's certainly even more fun to be part of.
Thank you.
So, Greg, thanks for your insights today. I think you're one of the best to talk to because you're not just focused on what your day job is. I think you clearly have an understanding of what's going on in the wealth industry and fintech and wealth tech and just the industry at large. I think it makes it easier probably for you to make decisions and to help your team as you focus on investments. And so, again, it's been a privilege to have some time with you today to talk about it.
Yeah, it's been awesome to be on it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Any way the individuals listening now, maybe future founders or current founders, can find you at Edward Jones Ventures? And then I think you have a summit coming up. Any big events ahead?
Yeah. So so if you want to find me, you can find me on LinkedIn or at my email address is just Gregory. .robinson at edwardjones.com. So please feel free. We absolutely love hearing from you. We are throwing our inaugural innovation summit here in St. Louis, of course, which we will have you here. This is our first one where we're going to bring together that network we talked about for a day and a half of talking about what we've done, where we're going, and hopefully, a day of learning and how do you accelerate innovation within a large organization. And I think it takes the entire network in order for that to happen. And so excited to get that done and excited to sort of, continue our growth at Edward Jones Ventures and continue to find new entrepreneurs and startups that are passionate about helping people, passionate about expanding advice, and obviously, expanding that human advice, because that's what we stand for, and we don't think that's going to go away. And we're excited to see if we can to provide more people across America and Canada great advice.
Awesome. Well, it's certainly the core of your 103-year-old culture and establishment. So great to hear. I'm looking forward to the summit. Maybe you'll have to have some pictures of your trunk or treat so I can, see what you did. I think it's great that you got put in charge of that. But if you love Christmas, you probably love decorating. So yes. I'm sure it was amazing.
Awesome.
All right, Greg. Thank you.
Talk soon.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you for joining us today. Join us in November when Brian speaks with Greg Brager, CEO of Collective Liquidity.